Buried in desert caves for 2,000 years, hidden from kings and popes and empires, these scrolls may contain truths the world was never meant to see. In 1947, a shepherd stumbled into the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea and found jars filled with ancient manuscripts. He had no idea he was staring at history, some of the oldest biblical texts ever discovered. They became known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among them, fragments of what we today call the Hebrew Bible, books like Isaiah and Exodus, along with writings never included in Scripture. Stories of angels and secret prophecies and apocalyptic visions. Some suggest they reveal an alternate history of faith, one deliberately hidden from the world, even today. Not all of the scrolls are available to the public. Some remain locked away, fueling rumors of forbidden truths. What kind of truths? Well, that's the thing, no one is 100% certain. But historians believe they may contain prophecies about the end of days, accounts of figures erased from history, or a different version of Scripture itself. The Dead Sea Scrolls remain holy relics and haunting mysteries, and their discovery raises questions that go beyond the ancient past. If new scriptures were revealed today, would the world embrace them or try to silence them? Let me explain. According to the Oxford Dictionary of the Jewish State, the Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of over 900 manuscripts or fragments of manuscripts, mostly written between the last 3 centuries BCE and the 1st century CE, though a few were penned as late as the 4th century CE. They were discovered between 1947 and 1956 in 11 caves at Qumran, where the Israeli archaeologists uncovered the remains of a community that had lived there around 2,000 years ago. The most prominent members of this community were the Sadducees, a religious sect who rejected the oral law, or tradition, and believed only in the written law, the Torah, or what Christians and Muslims came to know as the Old Testament. However, scholars have suggested that the community living in Qumran was made up of an assortment of Jewish sects, and perhaps even some non-Jewish groups as well. We just don't have enough evidence to say for sure. Whoever they were, they wrote a lot of what we now call the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were composed primarily of biblical manuscripts, including portions of every book in the Hebrew Bible, with the exception of the Book of Esther. In addition to the biblical texts, the scrolls contain non-biblical Jewish literature, including sectarian writings that seem to describe the rules and regulations of the Qumran community and the broader history of the time. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Dead Sea Scrolls is that they date back so long. Many of the texts found at Qumran are more than 1,000 years older than the next oldest texts previously discovered, meaning that they offer an unprecedented window into history. For example, they tell us that many of the books we now include in the Hebrew Bible were already circulating in written form by the 2nd century BC. Centuries before the traditional dating of their composition. They also show us that these books were subject to variation, meaning that the texts we now consider canonical were the product of a long process of transmission and evolution. But it is precisely this evolution that has led some to suggest that the Dead Sea Scrolls contain not only lost history, but lost scripture. After all, if the Bible we have today was exactly the same as the Bible of Jesus and Paul and the other early Christians, then what happened to the earlier versions? And are those versions still out there somewhere waiting to be found? Well, maybe. A small percentage of the Dead Sea Scrolls contain material not found anywhere else, from apocalyptic literature to sectarian writings to, yes, alternative versions of biblical books. The most famous example is for Q206, a fragment containing part of the biblical text for the creation of man in the book of Genesis, written in a language closer to Aramaic than the traditional Hebrew. Some scholars have argued that it represents an earlier stage in the development of the biblical text, while others claim it was intentionally altered to support a particular theological agenda. Either way, it shows that the biblical texts we have today are the result of a long and complicated process that cannot be easily explained away by simple notions of inspiration or revelation. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a treasure trove of information about the history of the Bible and early Judaism, but they also raise some difficult questions about the nature of religious authority and the origin of our scriptures. So let me pose one more question to you. If you could find a previously unknown manuscript that changed your understanding of history, would you share it with the world or keep it to yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.